and also used. So I'm going to go through a little bit about how this process works and then how we are using it at TRSA to help with the collaborative space in remote working environments to problem solve through different issues, just as kind of another tool in the toolbox for anybody that would ever like to use it. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So the consultancy process, the whole purpose of this is to really put the issue in forefront. So one big stigma from presenting an issue, especially in a remote work environment, I believe, is you become the forefront. Your screen is up, your face is in front of everybody, and so it brings a stigma that you are actually the one that's experiencing this problem, which this I do believe helps separate that a little bit. It makes it a lot more objective towards the issue that you are experiencing. And then it also helps the presenter think very particular about the issue, like what is the essence of the problem that I am seeking assistance with, or what things have I really tried authentically to help solve this problem, and what kind of worked, what completely did not work, and then where are there the gaps. Another thing that this really does is help the participants to really see and describe the issue and the material of their work, and then also help the team as a whole to really think critically about that issue and then reflect and develop responsive answers as of reactive solutions. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So this is how it really kind of plays out. So first off, one thing we had to describe at TRSA is what exactly is a dilemma or a problem. And it could really be almost anything. We were pretty open with what it could be because we all face different challenges. It could be, for some of the things I do is, thinking strategically about how we can, schedule different programs or make sure that we don't reach full capacity at all the time, that we're making sure that we extend programs out as need be, and we're supporting our community as we need to support it. It can also be, very targeted, where I'm really struggling how to make this event a remote event, or we keep running into this same issue with using this product, this simulator, whatever the item is. So it can be very, very, very specific or a little bit more broad. And then the great thing about this is it's a time-bound process. So time is always so valuable to all of us. So this really frames it into about 30 minutes. And you can actually make it a little bit shorter probably. I do think 30 minutes is a really good mark because you get to really popcorn fast different ideas. So you have to be very reactive with what you're hearing and being able to allow yourself to be open and vulnerable enough to just say what you're thinking in response to these different issues and not trying to hold back things to really get to the root of the problem and also get to some possible solutions. So what happens is you have a presenter and then you have the rest of the team. So the presenter shares the dilemma for about 2 to 3 minutes. So that gets to where they need to be very, very concise of what that dilemma really is. And then the team can come in and they will question and ask for clarifying or probing questions to really understand the essence of the problem. So it's not a time where people are putting out, initial ideas. It's really a time to clarify what the real problem is. And then there's a discussion within the team. So the presenter stays quiet at that moment and he gets to listen for all the different popcorning ideas that are happening within the team. And then for the last 5 minutes, that's the presenter actually reflecting on what they've heard. So that way, if there's any misconceptions or anything that was misunderstood in that discussion time, then that's the time that can kind of be ironed out a little bit. And then it's allowed for the presenter to be able to reflect a little bit. This is what I heard. Okay, here are some different pathway options I could take to solve this problem. So if we go to the next slide. So this is actually how we've applied it at TRSA. So as we started remote working environment, we actually do have daily meetings, and they're very short 30-minute daily meetings. And each day of the week has a different purpose for the meeting. On Fridays, we have the consultancy process meetings. So we actually have a running list of issues to discuss, but the team can always add different issues. If something comes up pretty quick, then we can move that issue. So it's almost like a triage list. It doesn't necessarily mean we go in that order. We didn't assign each person a particular week that they needed to present something because we wanted it to be very authentic. So these are issues that people are truly experiencing. And if it's something that, okay, I need help with this by next week to really start problem solving out, then we can obviously move that issue earlier on. One thing that I think it's really helped a lot with our team is it does provide that collaborative environment where it's, again, time bound. So then we aren't constantly on Zoom calls all the time, but it gives a lot of different perspectives because we have so many amazing, we call them superpowers on our team, that it's kind of hard to get everybody together all the time. But for 30 minutes once a week, we can usually do that to be able to problem solve some of these different issues. So it really gives a lot of different perspectives to the issue. And I know whenever I've been the presenter for an issue, I gain so much other perspective, and it really enlightens me as to what the essence of my problem really is. Because maybe I thought it was one thing, where as the team discussed it, I realized, they're actually hearing something a little bit different than what I thought the issue was. And so I need to think more critically about what they have uncovered. So it's a really great process, but again, another kind of tool in the tool bag to be able to use with teams. We've done it for a few weeks now, and it's been quite successful, and we look forward to continuing it. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, or we will be sending out this presentation and you'll be able to have the whole process, or I can send you more on the process as well.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to scoot back. I believe Mikeal is here. I noticed. So I'm going to scoot back and get back on track with the agenda. So Mikeal, let's see. You're there and off of mute. Yay. All right. I'm going to send it over to you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness. I got my second vaccine yesterday, so I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. Anyway, first and foremost, thank you all for having me this morning. My name is Mikeal Vaughn. I'm the founder and executive director of Urban Coders Guild. And really, I just wanted to talk really quickly about what we're doing this year with our students and our capstone project. As most of you know, this is 1921. This is the commemoration of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And we wanted to do something really interesting, really unique that really commemorated that moment, but also try to put that moment in context with where we are today and what we would want to see going forward. And that's our students acquiring some skills to tell their own stories. And so our idea for the capstone for this year is something that we're calling the 1921 Historic Black Wall Street Business Directory. If we could switch the next slide. Awesome. Thank you. So the quick overview is our students. We have 3 sets of students, 3 cohorts. One is learning web development. One is learning iOS app development, and one is learning Android mobile app development. So these students are actually using all of their acquired tech skills to make web and mobile apps. Our web development students are creating web pages for the businesses that were destroyed in the massacre. And then our mobile app development cohort students, they're creating an accompanying mobile geomarking app that maps all the businesses that were destroyed. And so what our greater vision is that this will be a tool going forward as we start to look at the massacre being included in our everyday instruction, our annual conversations around the massacre. And so we want this to be a resource. This is going to be a resource that was created by Tulsa students. It's also really important for us that we brought in other partners. And so we have a group of students from TCC who, through part of their service learning project, has researched the massacre, and they are providing the content for the websites. This is important because our students are great at learning the tech skills, the HTML, Java, CSS, all of the tech skills, but they're not necessarily right now at the point where they're content writers, copywriters. And so those group of students from TCC are writing the copy. And then we have another group of students, awesome students, who are actually creating logos for these businesses. So altogether, we're going to be able to create some really fun, interesting, exciting, informative websites for the businesses that were destroyed. We want to think a little bit about um, a business that was existing in 1918, 1921, and in that era. If it actually existed still today in 2021, it would most likely have a website. And so we wanted to have our students, again, learn the tech, write the stories, but then also to infuse some of their own creativity and imagine what that might look like, well, what that website might look like. I wanted them to envision, say, a movie theater, what that movie theater might be showing, how much those tickets might cost, and the concessions. And so I really wanted the students to go wild a little bit with their imaginations, but again, using the tech skills that they've learned over the past 4 months, as well as the things they've learned as they've done their research. I think I had 10 minutes. I don't know that that's 10 whole minutes. And we sort of skipped to the third slide, but this, again, it's students using their acquired web and mobile skills to create this directory. It's going to be both a website as well as an Android and iOS app, and we're going to get that published. And so that will exist beyond this year, going forward. And so again, students will be able to use that as an educational resource as they study the massacre.
Very good. That's exciting. Thank you for that. I will move along here to the next speaker, which is Dr. Johnson with TCC.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a wonderful morning today. Once again, I'm just grateful to be here. It's been a wonderful experience getting to know the TRSA staff with the potential collaborations that we're going to have. So today I want to be talking about Don't Be Scared, which is an organization I created in 2018. And we want to spark courage in the next generation. And if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So real fast, I want to tell you quickly about myself. So once again, I'm Dr. Johnson, and I was born and raised in Oklahoma City. So I'm an Oklahoman. I'm very familiar with Tulsa area. And then next slide. All right, and I grew up in a charter school type of environment. So I have background with that type of schooling. Next one. And I got my undergrad from Langston University, the only HBCU in Oklahoma, specifically in chemistry. And then I attended LSU to get my PhD in inorganic chemistry, where I then went to become an assistant professor at SWASU temporarily. And now I am at TCC as assistant professor of chemistry, this being my first year. And one last thing about me is that I do have a family in which I have, this is my wife, Ashley, and my daughter, Ava Rose. So she's turning 2 this year and a terrible 2s. Let's go to that next slide. Tulsa, like I mentioned before, this is my first time living in Tulsa, but my wife is actually from Tulsa. So Tulsa is a great city. I've loved it so far. I've been able to meet many, many great people, and it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. Now, recently about Tulsa, I've seen a couple stats that just blew my mind, to where we have it here. Today, a child born in the most predominantly Black part of our city has a life expectancy that is 11 years shorter than a child born elsewhere in Tulsa. And this is by the Resilient Tulsa Report. And that stat really blew my mind. It blew my mind. Thank you to Mackenzie for bringing that to my knowledge. Just to be, as far as where you're born has an impact before you're even lived. And then that stat, I kept wondering, well, where is the Black part of Tulsa? And I asked my wife this, and well, she said North Tulsa. And well, this is where I mainly go over the past years because my family, her family is in North Tulsa. And here's another stat that blew my mind again. The average North Tulsan income is $28,000. And if you go down to South Tulsa, it's $59,000. $59,000. So you see the difference there. not only with our income, but in many aspects, even from food deserts being in North Tulsa to compare to South Tulsa, where you can drive 2 blocks and I'm around 3 or 4 grocery stores, right? So there's a huge barrier that North Tulsans face, not only in Tulsa, but really in any major type of city in an urban community. These stats are everywhere. I've seen this in Louisiana, I saw this in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. So it's really eye-popping to see these stats out loud. Now, if we could go to the next slide. So I have a question. Are we scared? Are we scared of change? Now, the reason why I asked this question is, once again, I love stats. I'm a numbers guy. So my first number I'm going to bring up is our STEM workforce, If we could click that next slide, next. There we go. So currently in STEM, according to the Bureau of Labor, our STEM workforce is around close to 9 million, and this was in 2018. And as we all know, STEM is one of the fastest growing sectors in the United States. So it's only going to increase from here as we have companies in the tech field, especially with Google, Facebook, and they're going to be hiring new employees over the years. Now, what's interesting about our STEM workforce is that if we click that next one, is that 67% of the workers are actually non-Hispanic whites. So it's not that diverse in the STEM workforce. And as we all know, being in STEM, there's many benefits to come with STEM. Now, if we compare this to our underrepresented populations, if we could go to those next couple of points. If we look here, we're going to see that, so our makeup of the United States currently, if we're looking at Hispanics, Blacks, and Native Americans, they make up around 27% of the US population. And these are just adults. And if we look at our STEM workforce, it's not reflective of that number compared to our non-Hispanic whites. So why is that? Well, as I mentioned before, we just look at Tulsa, there's a number of barriers that these populations have to face on the daily. And if they're considering getting STEM, well, they have another barrier to face. And one thing about Don't Be Scared is that I want to pose the question is, well, are we scared? These stats have been the same for the past decades. And previously in the 80s, they were worse. Around 80% of the workers were non-Hispanic whites. So we gradually changed, but we haven't changed enough. And that's where this thing came in my mind, to where I just had to say, don't be scared. I had to say, don't be scared. I had to tell myself, don't be scared, because I was in a room being the only Black male in that room. To where not only is it for me, but it's bigger than me at this point, because it's about the next generation. And if we go to that next slide. So we are trying to spark courage for the next generation. And if we go to the next click, I'm going to play you guys. Okay, so I had a video here. I'm not sure if it's going to pop up or not. Can we just go click? One more click. Okay, I guess it's not there.
Yeah.
So we can go back. So in my video, it was just showing a community event we recently did in North Tulsa. But in that community event, we did a number of science demonstrations. And one thing we're trying to get across with our science demonstrations is that we want an interactive learning environment for our students. I've noticed over the years that if you're able to interact with your students, you get a better development of their knowledge. And if you can make a concept fun, they're more likely to memorize it better than if it's not, especially in chemistry. And building these relationships have been just a great part of being in Don't Be Scared. Now, our overall goal is that we definitely want to change the workforce to where we're increasing the minorities in STEM. And that, to me, is going to be the next generation. As we know, STEM is only going to grow from here. And I want to make sure that our students, those especially in underrepresented communities, are able to take advantage of the opportunities that come with STEM. And if we go to the next slide here. So what exactly does Don't Be Scared do, and how do we help our community? So you click that. So here's a video in this case. Not sure if it's going to play or not.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's perfectly fine. So this is a video. As you can see, the smoke, that is not smoke on the ground. That is actually liquid nitrogen. So that's liquid nitrogen. So liquid nitrogen is a chemical that is very common in the lab, but you'll be surprised how many people haven't experienced liquid nitrogen. So that particular school is Baker Elementary School. And we had a collaboration with Baker to where I came out every month and did some science experiments while teaching the lessons to the students. Because one thing I've learned being in these particular underrepresented schools is that, well, science is not a key part of the curriculum at the schools. So where the students aren't able to be given those lessons just because the teachers have so many things going on. So I try to help out by bringing those different science experiments there. So like I said, that was Baker Elementary in Baker, Louisiana. And we create science events, camps, and community projects. We worked with different churches. We worked with different schools before. We also provide tutor opportunities to where we can help with those hard concepts. Because if you can't make the concept fun, the student will never want to learn it. And if we could click that last point. And then we also provide programming and equipment and also lessons for science demonstrations. And then we go to the next slide. We go to the next slide. So we have what we call chemistry experiences, to where we want to create an experience for the students when they're learning these concepts. So I have, these are the number of science experiments we have now. Based off my work at LSU and different things like that, we can see we have a variety from atmosphere to acids and bases to even some more complicated chemistry when we get into stoichiometry, kinetics, and equilibrium. So we can hit all grade levels with these science demonstrations. And one last thing to mention here is that, as I mentioned before, I'm a chemistry professor at TCC, and one thing I'm going to implement in the fall, hopefully after COVID dies down, is a service learning aspect to my courses. So I'm going to have, as a requirement, my students go out to the Tulsa community, either to their previous schools or to a new school potentially, and they're going to give these demonstrations you see right here to certain classes. So they'll reach out to those teachers and then they'll give their science demonstrations. And we can go to that last slide. And if you guys ever need to contact me, here's my contact information. Once again, you can contact my email, ryan.johnson15@tulsaacc.edu, or if you're ever downtown by the Metro campus, feel free to come up to my office at 632. Once again, I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you to TRSA. Thank you to XSAN. It's been really wonderful meeting the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. That's great. Doing good things. I apologize for the video fails. And maybe you can email me those and I will include them in the follow-up email to all the attendees.
That works.
All right, perfect. All right. So our next speaker is Nick Hathaway, who's the Chief Executive Officer for ELocker, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does there.
Thank you very much. Excited to be with you all this morning, and thanks to my fellow presenters for their thirst for new approaches to adapt to the changing world around us. That's very much in our spirit at ELocker. And when we talk about ELocker, we're all about innovative tools for education and workforce. And at the center of ELocker is all about giving the learner control over their skills development records. Everything we do is about partnering with schools and skills providers to give learners control over their records so that they can use them to advance their life. And when you think about who is a skills provider, it's unnecessarily, we keep it broad for a reason. That's, if COVID has taught us anything, it's that there's learning taking place in a whole wide variety of settings in our life. And when you think about it and the records that we keep relative to our education and our skills development, it's all about only that which takes place within the four walls of a school. So let's move to the next slide. Sometimes when you're looking at something for a long time, you miss opportunities to look at things differently. And I've always loved the art of this particular artist who does this with lots of different street signs. And And ELocker isn't about putting a Pac-Man on a street sign, but it's just about looking at something that we've looked at throughout our entire life, that is the educational system and the tools and services that serve it, and just looking at it in a slightly different way. The next slide. The educational system, when you think about it, was developed for an economy and for a workforce that was very different than the one today. I mean, when you look at all the changes that have taken place since the organization of our schools and our skills development ecosystem, lots of things have changed, and there's a forecast for even more change going forward. I know, which is kind of an uncomfortable thing to think about, but it's been suggested that the life expectancy of people, you know, who have just been born might be up towards 100 years. And when you look at automation and robotics and all sorts of things that are impacting the workforce, it's suggested that people might go through 12 different work transitions in their life. And again, you can hear the emphasis on skills development, which is centered around lifelong learning. This isn't about K through 12 or P through 20. It's really about giving people the tools and their records to serve them throughout their life. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm focusing there again, since the development and the organization of the system and the development of the tools that serve the current system of skills development, there have been lots and lots of changes, lots and lots of new technologies. I focus on these because they're the center of ELocker. There have been dramatic changes in data storage, artificial intelligence, and blockchain, you know, things. And when you look at blockchain, I mean, really, that's more of something of the future than it is of the today, although there are some really innovative things taking place there in education, but there's still a lot of work to be done to perfect what's going on there. But nonetheless, lots of opportunities for improvement. The next slide. So what is ELocker? I really, it pains me like a stab in the heart to call it a transcript, because no one cares about their transcript, right? There's maybe once or twice in your life that you really care about your transcript. And to me, that seems odd, because you've gone through an educational process and you arrive at the end, and the marker, the record that you've been given of your experience is this transcript, right? Which sounds kind of important. I mean, when you think about it, we're so focused on the data in our lives, and is it being taken here, and is Amazon using it to give us this recommendation? And when I click on that box on the website, what happened to my data? Well, learners are really not in control of the most important data in their entire life, which is that which tracks their skills development, of which there's a mountain of it. So the next slide. And so what is it, you know, here's, you know, this is kind of going back to those street signs, you know, let's just look at something in a different way. When you think about that transcript as being the record, that which you get at the end of an arduous process of learning, let's look at exactly what that is, that what people are given to communicate their skills development. The transcript as it exists today wasn't developed at all to communicate, to communicate a record of your talents. It was developed as an administrative tool at various educational institutions to track student progress at that institution. It was never intended to be shared externally. And you can tell this because it's often codified. Institutions are using their own language, their own abbreviations, their own this and their own that. That's no one outside the institution can truly interpret. And so when you think about a transcript, you know, just as one example of something that perhaps there's an opportunity to look at it in a different way, and perhaps to add something to the system, which would do a better job, I think the transcript's a great example. Moving to the next slide. And so, you know, okay, so, you know, if we didn't, you know, examine things like that in the transcript, there's a lot of missed opportunity. You know, I think there's a real opportunity to give, and we should be giving learners, and I'll talk about some of the exciting potential for it, giving learners something that is learner-centric, more portable, digitally verifiable by someone who's receiving it, and market savvy. There's, you know, applying those strategies that I had earlier in this presentation, there are some really exciting opportunities to do better. The next slide. This just simply makes the point again, because it deserves some emphasis. This information that most people do not have true control over. You can visit it through a website, you know, often you can see what you've done, but you cannot truly control it in any meaningful way. And it's just enormously valuable to human development. The next slide. And so here, this is really the essence of it. And I hope I'm doing okay on time, but I'll spend just a couple minutes on this slide. what are the opportunities for embracing innovation, embracing a tool and a service like ELocker? Increased equity in the distribution of opportunities. One of the things that ELocker allows a learner to do is to put an anonymous set of their talents out into an environment where approved skills or opportunity providers can find that basket of talent. And so one of the things that I often say is there's talent in every neighborhood of our communities, but the problem is it's hard for that talent to see how their talent applies to the world around them. They don't have someone in their life that knows what it takes to be an aerospace engineer. There's not anyone under my roof right now in my home that knows what that takes. And yet I might have a child here that would be an outstanding aerospace engineer. And when you multiply that across the workforce, it happens again and again and again. None of us know truly how talents can apply broadly like that. This next one I think is super important. There are tens of millions of Americans that have partaken of some part of a higher education. And if they do not complete at current, they don't achieve a degree, they have nothing currently to demonstrate what it is that they learned, and certainly receive no guidance about what they've learned and how it might apply to the world. I think that's a travesty. It is often a significant investment in something called, higher education, of which there's no, it's a car you can't drive or a vacation home you can never visit because you don't receive anything unless you finish. Efficient market for talent. I think if you had a world where people had more control over their records, you could see a lot more swirling and collaboration. There'd be a place where your internship and your apprenticeship and your education would talk to one another and collaborate more fully with one another. There'd be a lot more communication among all parts of a skills development ecosystem. Individualization and personalization, I think, just is something that is just a simple, really, achievement that we could, if we did better in keeping and the strategic use of education data. We know more than ever, again, this is one of those things brought even more clarity by COVID. People learn in different ways and thrive in different learning environments. And the place where I think we could really help all of our skills development professionals even more is to give them tools like ELocker where they can gain a deeper understanding of a learner and how it is that they particularly and individually thrive, because it's not about replacing people. It's about giving the people who care the tools to be more human. That's what one of the other things I say is be the human. You don't take away the things that make you more of a robot and be the human, because you are absolutely vitally essential in the educational process. So I think I'm getting near the end of my time. We can move to the next slide. If I've done even a reasonable job, hopefully you would see how it is that ELocker could really fit in terms of the work of the TRSA, in terms of really taking a community approach to developing STEM talent broadly in Tulsa. And Tulsa is particularly good at these community-driven kinds of collaborations and really value the work of TRSA in this regard. And on the next one, again, I know there's a lot to this, and I, really probably didn't do it justice, but I would really enjoy the conversation and the collaboration with you all to discover where there might be opportunities to work together. And with that, I would just thank you all very much, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Nick. So yeah, you can see Nick's contact information there, and we have all of the speakers' contact information on the agenda, which will be included when the meeting is over. I will share this presentation with everybody. So we'll move on to the next speaker, and that is Sarah Floyd, who is our marketing guru at TRSA.
All right, hi everybody, I'm Sarah Floyd, again, marketing manager here at TRSA, and I'm actually going to turn off my video while I'm speaking. It told me I had an unstable connection. I want to make sure I don't get disconnected while I'm talking. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about TRSA's 2020 annual report. Next slide, please. All right, so 2020 was quite a learning curve for TRSA. We started out in person like many of you, but we moved everything virtual at the beginning of the year. So this front cover represents a list of individuals and organizations who really helped make 2020 possible for TRSA. So none of our efforts or anything that we did would be possible without the support from our staff, donors, board of directors, volunteers, mentors, community partners, and advisory council members just like you guys. Next slide, please. So you can see some of our 2020 stats. One of the most notable things is our figure for students who were directly impacted in the year 2020. Our original goal was actually 50,000, and you can see we actually reached more than 140,000. So we're really proud of this specific figure for 2020. Next slide, please. All right, so one of the big reasons we were able to reach so many students in 2020 is due to the distribution of our STEM in a bag. As many of you know, these are STEM activities that utilize household materials. Each bag is designed by its theme. It includes engineering, computer science, math, natural science, and each of these activities also aligns to Oklahoma academic standards. So you can see there were 114 sites that we distributed our STEM in a bag, and more than 63,000 students were directly impacted specifically from STEM in a bag. So next slide, please. So this is actually a breakdown of the specific locations where our STEM in a bag were distributed. You can see the majority of those locations are going to be Tulsa, but also including northeastern Oklahoma as well. Next slide. So this is actually our program impact map. It includes all the locations we impacted across northeastern Oklahoma. And when we're actually done, when I'm done with this presentation, I'll put a direct link if you want to. You can look at our full annual report and you can check out that program impact map as well. Next slide. So here's a breakdown for our events for 2020. One important thing to note, excuse me, we saw more student participants during our virtual summer camp offerings, and it exceeded previous year numbers. So we're really proud of that fact because, like I said, having to move everything virtual, you never know how that's going to go, but we had a really successful year and we were really grateful for the participation of students across our area. Next slide. And this is just some feedback, and there's a lot of other feedback from parents and students in the actual report that I'm going to share with you. But this is a specific feedback we received regarding our summer academy. So next slide. So here's a breakdown for our volunteers and mentors. One important thing to note about this, it included the 60 judges we had for our very first Tulsa Regional Science Fair. It was really exciting that we were able to bring that back in 2020. So we're really proud of that as well. So next slide. So here's the data we received regarding professional development. We actually had 26 PD sessions in 2020, which we're really proud about because, again, even during a pandemic, we were still able to complete those sessions. Next slide. So I don't know if you can read this again when I actually share the actual report with you, the link to it, you'll be able to kind of see this, but we tried to include lots of data. And so this is the data feedback we received via surveys regarding our PD sessions. So you can kind of see people giving their feedback and saying that it was a valuable use of their time and things like that. All right, next slide. All right, so here we shared information about computer science, which is actually a newer department at TRSA. We also shared some information about our program portal. If you're not familiar with the program portal, we introduced it in 2020. It is a community database that houses our program and records. So teachers, volunteers, partners, families, they can go sign up for events, create events. So we really allow them to just like kind of control the content that we're sharing and to control the records and to see their records. So it's really good for partner organizations that volunteer with TRSA and things like that. So they can actually go and look at their participation and see how they have contributed to TRSA and have that access to that data. So we felt that was really important. And so again, that was launched in November 2020. And from November 2020, to the time the report was completed, we have 145 registered users on there. So, and I'm sure that number has changed since then, but that's the last data that I received. So next slide, please. All right, so this is the wrap up of the report. We really felt like this quote summed up 2020 because we really could not accomplish everything we did without support. So we really feel like this is like speaks 2020. If you want to go far, go together, because everything we did was because of people like you guys. So we're really grateful for that. And I'm going to go ahead and put that link in there for everyone to see in case you want to check out the full report. There it is. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'll also include that in the email as well, if you don't catch that in the chat. So our next speaker is Robert Kaiser, who's the principal at Monroe Demonstration Academy. He's going to talk a little bit. I think he has a partner in crime with him as well. They're going to tag team and talk about what's going on at Monroe.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, everybody. We are super excited to be here today. I have my partner on here with me, our Assistant Principal of Teaching and Learning, Sydney Goburn-Dowdy, to talk a little bit about ways that we've been incorporating STEM here at Monroe Demonstration Academy. We'll talk a little bit about who we are, some of the projects and initiatives that we've worked on this year. And so we're really excited about that. So next slide, please. So who we are. So Monroe is a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school. If you have not heard of us, we are in the McLean feeder pattern. So we have about 750 scholars here at Monroe that come from 7 different elementary schools. So we are McLean's middle school. So McLean High School, we are their middle school. And so we're about 1.5 years into the Monroe consolidation. And so I think it's important just to kind of note where we've been to understand where we're going. So here at Monroe, like I said, about a year and a half ago, we went through a big consolidation where within the feeder pattern of McLean, there was a task force that was created and different, community meetings and things like that. And basically the community had decided, we want everybody to be able to go to Monroe. Monroe used to be a magnet school. We served about 250 students. So about 7 or 8 months, we went from about 250 students to about 850 students. We went from a single school to a campus model, and we now are the middle school here in North Tulsa and for McLean High School. And so I think it's important to note that because we're relatively new in this new model in which we serve. So last year was our first year getting new people on board and putting new handles on doors. We have a huge campus model and really just making that happen. Then COVID hit, right? So then COVID hit. I took over as principal. Ms. G came on as an assistant principal of our teaching and learning in June. And so we've really strived to focus and continue to focus on STEM, even in the face of COVID. And we're really proud about some of the things that we've been able to make happen so far. So next slide, please. So where we've been, STEM 2020, 2021. So we're going to talk a little bit about our satellite office hours. We're going to talk about our Monroe Demonstration Academy Community Garden. And then Ms. G is going to dive into us being selected as a Amazon Future Engineering Program site here at Monroe. And I know Brian Bovard is on the call, and I want to give him a shout out. Those of you that know Brian know the energy that he brings. But for all 3 of these things, I just want to shout him out because he has really been an instrumental piece to us here at Monroe in making these things happen. So shout out to Brian, who's on the call, for helping us with that. So next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to start with our satellite office hours. And so this was a partnership that we had with the Tulsa Housing Authority. And we spent the first 9 weeks of our school year, Monday through Thursday, in a different housing complex that we serve. So we recognize that there's a lot of barriers that our families face as it relates to COVID, as it relates to coming to our school. And so we really wanted to be intentional about how we're reaching our families. And so we decided, hey, let's just take our school and move it to some of the apartment complexes and housing complexes that we serve. So we were able to partner with THA. And so for the first 9 weeks, every Monday we were at Comanche Manor. Every Tuesday we were at Apache Manor. Every Wednesday we were at Mohawk. and every Thursday we were at Seminole. And so what we did was we worked with the Tulsa STEM Alliance alongside some other partners, and we were able to support our families by delivering these STEM kits to our families within the each housing complex. So we were able to, as best we could, take down some of those barriers. And this also served as a way for us to get technology help, enrollment support to families who enrolled in TPS. But as you can see, we had a large number of families use this, especially when we first started. Students hadn't been in the building since March, and so this was like their touch point for our families. And it was really a great way for us to be able to let families know, like, we're walking with you through this. We don't expect you to have all the answers. And it was also a great way for us to get these STEM kits to families. And so it really, really allowed us to meet families where they were and really support them and grow that STEM, participation and knowledge during this time. So this was a great thing, and we're going to continue, in some way, shape, or form. It won't be all 4 days a week, but we'll continue with this as we progress throughout the next, years of these pop-up office hours in the different neighborhoods that we serve, as a way to really help, our families. So next slide, please. Our next big project is our community garden. And this was a partnership with Food on the Move and the Ed Darby Foundation. Brian and Outdoor Classroom had provided aquaponics systems. So if you walk into our 6th grade East building, our 6th grade team has been working very closely with Brian on the aquaponic systems that are helping with this grow the seedlings. But this was really with purposeful planning with our science team. So the community garden is going to operate through the agribusiness lens. And so which will open a potential partnership with local restaurants and businesses. The community garden will also help with our scholars that have disabilities, because it's all ADA accessible. So students can really get that STEM piece, even our scholars that may be in wheelchairs or maybe, our level 3 and 4 scholars. And it also creates an opportunity for expanded learning with Food on the Move during the after school day. So we have a garden club that's getting ready to start up after our spring break, which is March 22nd. And this is going to be like really community driven and student led. And so within this garden project, we've also have a great partnership with the faith-based communities here in North Tulsa. And so we have different partners that will be adopting grow beds. And so what that means is each grow bed will have a different partner or church that has adopted the grow bed, because we know there's going to be some work to be done in the summertime and students won't be on campus. But this is really going to be a foundational part of what we do here at Monroe. As some of you may know, Monroe is situated in the heart of a food desert in North Tulsa. So being able to give students the experience of planting and harvesting their own food. We've already talked with some local restaurants that will come in and help students, show how to prepare meals and all those kind of things. So as a community garden, this will create an opportunity for our students to not only learn the agricultural side of things, but the agribusiness model is something that we're really, really excited about. So students will learn how to do marketing. They'll learn how to price their foods. They'll learn how to, sell their foods. So we're building that entrepreneurship through STEM, which I think is really, really exciting, because you can see this concrete, you see this concrete opportunity for students and this really like concrete business that you can start, and especially serving the needs of our community here in North Tulsa, to have food that's grown in North Tulsa, sold or given to families in North Tulsa. It's really an exciting piece for us, and our scholars are really excited about that as well. I think one thing to note with Food on the Move is that, really community based. So our students will get to work on, they'll decide what they want to grow after doing some research. This won't be something, this is all student led, and we're in phase 1 right now. And so when we move to phase 2 of our garden, our students in our technology classes will be able to come out and look and start to design what they want phase 2 to look like. Will we have some shade gardens? Will we have some different, picnic table setups? And our students will be able to design that. And so it's really been this community focused project. And we've been really, really excited about that. And so next slide, please. And I'm going to kick it off to my partner, Miss G.
All right, so Amazon Future Engineer Program, aka Project STEM, is part of Amazon's $50 million investment in computer science and STEM education. And as of March 2019, there was 28 Oklahoma schools that were part of this program, and we were selected to actually implement this beginning next year. So one thing that Amazon found was that a leading predictor of success in tech jobs is whether or not students took AP Computer Science A as a high school student. And so what Project STEM does is it provides 3-year curriculum that is generating a pipeline for middle school students to prepare them to actually take AP Computer Science courses when they get to high school. So the students that go through this program will learn block-based coding, text-based coding, and start to dabble in Python, which will really prepare them to take those courses as high school students. And one of the ways that we're implementing this at Monroe starting next year is through an academies model. So we're planning on having a STEM academy, and every student in the STEM academy, along with going to classes where they can actually learn all their subjects through a STEM lens, will be required to take this program. And so they will have that computer science background and be able to take those courses when they go to high school.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. G. And that is our big 3 programs for or initiatives or programs for this year. We love our community partners. I know, Brian, I gave him, a shout out, can't shout him out enough, but we have a monthly partner call that we do at Monroe. So, the Tulsa STEM Alliance has been tremendous in helping us continue to strive to meet our students' needs with STEM. They're always on the call as well. So if there are any other people out there that would like to, get involved up here in the beautiful heart of North Tulsa and meet with our scholars and create some opportunities for our kids, we'd be happy to do that. So thank you all so much for letting us present today. We love talking about Monroe. We could talk about it all day. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. You give out a shout out to Brian. I'll give out a shout out to you and your team. You're doing great work up there. That's awesome. All right. Our next speaker is Emily Lim with Broken Arrow. She's going to tell us what's going on over in Broken Arrow Public Schools in the STEM world.
Hi guys, in just a minute, I'm going to turn off my camera because I think I'm also having some connection issues, but I hope everything works on this presentation. I did want to say that everybody's doing some amazing things. We have not been able to participate in these calls, so my update is a little late because we always had conflicts, but I'm excited to share with you guys what's happening at Broken Arrow today. So the first slide will tell you a little bit about our engineering pathway. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Yeah, so we have an engineering pathway that's been in place for a number of years here at Broken Arrow, where we have all 5 middle schools doing Project Lead the Way. And then they're moving into the 9th grade where they really go to the Tulsa Tech pathway. So 9th and high school, we feed them into the Tulsa Tech pathway, which is an excellent pathway for our kids. And we have a lot of success in that area. Next slide, please. Another STEM pathway that we just created this year is our computer science pathway, and it was made possible by the Schusterman Family Foundation. We now have all 5 middle schools who are teaching app creators and innovators and makers, and the Tulsa Regional STEM Alliance offered a class this summer for app creators, and we were able to jump on that opportunity and get our teachers trained. So thank you, TRSA. The 9th grade academy, we were also able to send 2 teachers to computer science essentials, and at high school we have cybersecurity and AP computer science. So we have a full 6th through 12th grade pathway now for computer science. I'm going to try to buzz through these. Next slide. So we also started an innovative elective class this year. It's been a little bit tough because of all of the distance learning that we've had to go through, but we are in the beginning stages of creating an innovative elective at all 5 middle schools. And this class feels a little bit like a shop class because we have laser cutters, vinyl cutters, sewing machines, a tabletop CNC mill. And then we've been partnering with Fab Lab to train our teachers and make sure that they have the best professional development that they can. And I've been working with them to create projects at the middle school level. Next slide, please. And that will help us feed into a brand new high school at Broken Arrow. It's we're thinking of it as a micro high school. It's called Vanguard Academy. Next slide, please. The Vanguard Academy was named by a group of students on the naming committee, and Vanguard means a group of people leading new ideas, and that's what we're doing here in Broken Arrow. There was a bond passed in 2015 for $24 million, and the building started about a year and a half ago, and we move in May. It was designed through a charrette process involving students and faculty and so local community members. It's a state-of-the-art facility that I can't wait to show you guys. Next slide. We want to be more than a school, and we definitely are creating a holistic atmosphere. I don't have time to tell you the story about a kid who created these STEM kits in California, but he basically was part of more than a school. His school affected his community, and that's what we want to do. We want our school to affect our community. Next slide, please. I wanted to include more than I could share, so I don't know if these slides are accessible, but on your own, you should watch this 2-minute video. It's a rendering of the school, and it's beautiful. So we're going to skip that for now and go on to the next slide. I want to honor your time. The Vanguard Academy will have 10 learning labs. A wet lab just has sinks in it, a dry lab and a studio, 4 computer labs, a maker space, manufacturing lab. We're also moving our ag department out there, and that's going to be really exciting. We have 3 barns on the property. Our rooms have 3 walls, so it's a lot of open concept rooms for a lot of collaboration between classes. Next slide. We have 4 foundational components for Vanguard that we've been working on for a year to create what makes us different. And the first difference is holistic. The second is competency-based. We're interdisciplinary, and we provide a huge number of voice and choice for our students. The next slide, please. On holistic, this is the thing that really sets us apart. We have these bold learning objectives that we're going to measure students on, and we're going to measure students on creativity, knowledge, mindset, and skills. And those are the 4 big, bold learning objectives that we'll weave throughout of our content. Next slide, please. Competency-based, go ahead and go to the next slide. Our goal is growth, not grades. So whenever we go into classrooms to recruit 8th graders, we talk about that we're focused on growth and not grades, and we really mean that. So we really want to focus on the skills and the concepts and not as much on whether they have a passing grade or not. Some students are slower to pick it up, and so we want to be able to acknowledge that in their own time, they might be able to get to that concept, and we're going to offer them the supports to get there. Next slide, please. I'm going to buzz through these. We're going to skip this because the educators are probably the formal educators will care about that. Go ahead to the next slide. I really did want to provide you more information than you needed on this slide deck. I really do need to talk to ELocker after this, but I wanted to talk about what we think we're using, which is a mastery transcript next year. After hearing Nick's presentation, I may want to visit with him, but we're going to use a mastery transcript instead of a traditional transcript. And so this really shows you the shape of a student. The center target gives you how many, a numerical value on what the student has achieved, but it's really those radial dials that look like, a Wi-Fi signal that show you the shape of a student. And we get to create whatever we want these to be. So this is where we'll show knowledge, skills, mindset, and creativity, as well as language arts, science, math, and social studies. On the right, this is something I really love. The student is able to upload evidence of what they have learned. And that evidence tells me more about what she knows about physics than it does if I look at a transcript that says she made a B in physics. And then in the upper left-hand corner, this is a student statement. It's kind of their mission statement for life. And we actually are going to work with them to modify that, because as the student grows, so should their mission statement. Next slide. Interdisciplinary and voice and choice. So I'm running out of time. I'm going to say next and then next. Let's keep going. You guys know what interdisciplinary is. Keep going. One more. We're going to offer a tremendous amount of voice and choice throughout the 4 years. I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to quickly show you a schedule. Keep going. We have keep going. Yeah, we have one more slide and I'll stop for a second. So we have an Expo program and a Bad Lab program. The Expo program is really focused on exposition and PBL. We have been fortunate enough to partner with the Schusterman family and pay for professional development for PBL works. And so we are training faculty on how to create projects that are multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. So in the science and math PBL, our students will be co-taught between a science teacher and a math teacher. And then we're going to have an outdoor learning class that will focus on environmental science credits, as well as leadership and collaboration. And we'll have outdoor experiences such as kayaking, rock climbing, fly fishing, and archery. They'll have an English language arts and social studies project. And then the Intro to Expo is really the class that teaches them how to use all of the lab equipment, how to use the welding, the CNC plasma cutter, the laser cutters, the 3D printers, the sewing machines. We're going to have a sublimation printer. We're going to have a direct to garment printer. So that's the class that will teach them how to use all of that equipment. Go ahead and scroll forward several slides. Keep going. Keep going. So if you're interested in the credits that a student will earn, you can certainly see that. We have another program called the Bad Lab, which stands for BA Design Lab, and that focuses on the Stanford Design School, human-centered design. And students in that class, go forward one more slide, I think. Students in that class will be able to take a fusion class, which is science and math integrated, as well as an interdisciplinary ELA social studies class, but it's going to feel completely different than the Expo class. And I would love to tell you more about it, but I'm running out of time. So we're going to keep going. One more slide. So the Bad Lab experience has fusion, kinetic, and immersion. We talked to a school in Idaho where their immersion class was the overall topic was election 2020, but a student focused on her driving question was whether the US was ready for a female president. And so she had to research female leaders all across the globe. She created an interactive digital map. And that's the idea behind immersion, is that a student really gets to create their own driving question related to a theme. Let's go forward. It's 9:17. Exan's waiting on me. Keep going. One more and one more. And again, I should control these. So we also are offering innovative electives for students who don't want to come over to Vanguard full-time. Right now, we have a renewable energy course, a drone course, introduction to careers in tech, and an outward bound course offered to 10th through 12th graders. I did want to tell you about our building just a minute. In the center, there's a 2-story arena that's kind of our commons area. And we have cables that we can remote control down from the ceiling and raise hula hoops up so we can create an indoor drone course. We also have a drop wall where students can walk out and drop from a 2-story balcony, and slow motion cameras so we can catch things in the fall and do a meter per second fall rate. Next slide. Let's see. So this is the very last slide. We want to focus on connection, student to student connection and student to school connection. The gentleman leading the building is a guy named Mr. Jadamski, and his focus is on school culture. And he is really a specialist on making a school culture a positive environment. So this is our advisory program. We want to teach kids how to be good adults, change a tire, wash and dry clothes, and really finding their why. So we want to spend 4 years with these students and help them find their what they're passionate about and define their purpose. And I think that's all I have. I'm sorry I ran over. This is so exciting, you guys. I can't wait to tell you more updates next year.
That's awesome. I think we broke the speed limit, but you somehow still managed to be very articulate and get a lot of information in there that I could still capture. It wasn't like I felt like I was left behind. That's you got a lot going on over there and really exciting things. Maybe when we can do some face-to-face things, we can have an advisory council meeting at your new facility.
We would love it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that in real life. That's awesome, Emily. Good work. All right, so we will get to our closing. I'm going to turn it over to Emily, and she's going to close us out today. I want to thank everybody for attending today, though. We've had some exciting information shared with us by some great speakers.
Yes, thank you, everybody. This has been phenomenal presentations from every single person on this agenda. And I have learned so much today, and I really appreciate you guys sharing everything that you are doing. And so in TRSA fashion, at the end of advisory councils, we always have some sort of activity or something. And a lot of times we've actually done like a but-for statement. So yeah, we're going to try to get through this, but we have a very special member, Xan Black, who's our executive director, is retiring. And this is her last advisory council this month. This is a lot harder than I was like planning this to be right now. So our but-for is Xan Black, because without her, I think we can all say that TRSA definitely at least would not be what it is today. And even if TRSA would actually be at all in any capacity. So Xan Black, you have been the most incredible leader for the internal TRSA team to show us how to develop a workplace culture that embraces individuality, but has us marching towards the same goal. And then also abroad, you know, even before I came on as TRSA staff, I heard, what is this TRSA? What is this advisory council thing? And then the moment I met you, it just clicked, and I knew exactly how to belong and where to belong, and the passion that you've had for every single project TRSA has done. And I don't think we could have done this without you. So I just wanted to open up for a minute to honor our fearless leader, Xan Black, before she goes forward in her new role as Lolly, and taking care of her precious little baby granddaughter, little Miss Joy. So if anyone else would like to say anything, you are more than welcome to do so. And then we will truly embarrass Xan and have her get on here at the very end.
I would like to say that she changed my life. I met Xan when I was still working in medical schools, and she's what inspired me to come back to secondary ed and STEM in particular. And then she has changed the trajectory of both my girls' lives, both my senior in high school as well as my 7th grader. Xan has been a strong female role model for both of my girls and for me. So Xan, the friendship and the mentorship and the leadership that you have shown and grown people who are surrounding you, it's been remarkable. And I can't wait to see you still in a social setting, but you will be missed in a professional setting.
Thank you.
There's a really kind statement from Suzanne in the chat box now. And Xan isn't leaving us quite yet. She is still with us as our executive director till April 1st. And then after that, like, we're not actually letting her really leave. She has signed a lifelong contract to be volunteer, advisory council member, everything with TRSA. So we definitely want to see more of Xan Black, but she will be very, very missed as our executive director. And then Colonel Miller actually just put in another one, and so did Kristen. So hope here they come. So Xan, we'll let you read these on your own. Oh,
Jump in there quickly. I'll just say, as a member of the board, on behalf of the board, we can't say enough. We can't say thank you enough to Xan for, again, all the blood, sweat, and tears to get this thing up and running. And I would just assure everyone that even though Xan has extremely large shoes to fill, there are members of the board working diligently to ensure that TRSA will be a sustainable organization going forward. Work's underway to find a new executive director, and nothing to announce immediately, but just be assured that work is in progress. And Xan, as Emily said, will definitely be in touch going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
thank you, guys. And if you've ever received an email from Exanne or any kind of written document from Exanne, she always has a signature from Winston Churchill, never, ever, ever give up. And that is true TRSA fashion. Just as Ken said, we have plans to keep moving forward and going to the next level, but we could never have gotten to that level without Exanne Black. So thank you so much for all your service and time.
Thank you.
And then with that, enough of the sappy stuff right now. We're going to resume our normal programming. We do have our next meeting coming up on June 10th. So hopefully we'll be able to see all of your wonderful faces again. And if you have friends or other coworkers or other partners that you know of that could benefit from being part of our advisory council, we would love to have them as well. And I'll send it back to Lynn.
Yeah, just a quick wrap up to say thank you again for everyone's attendance. I hope you enjoyed today's presentations, and we will look forward to seeing you in June. Have a great day. Enjoy this great weather.